rather than just having to read it on paper. I was reading through the grant request, and I was like, this doesn't really tell you who we are and what we do. So this is our opportunity just to give you a little bit of face-to-face information and maybe give you some of that good feeling that we get working for Big Brothers Big Sisters. So Shelly said, I'm Amy Riesinger, I'm the executive director. No, I'm not from Billings. I moved here about a year ago from Georgia. My husband grew up in Billings, so this was an opportunity for him to come back home, and here we are. I've worked in nonprofit for about 20 years. I've been with Big Brothers Big Sisters for a year, and it has been eye-opening. Working in the youth service organization is amazing. It's different, it's very hard work, and it is so rewarding. And hopefully Lauren and I can give you a little sense of that today. So, if you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Lauren Bond, broker owner of the agency Montana. I know most of you. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here. I've been on the board for going on 2 years, vice president of the board, and was a big for 4 years before that. So I just have really good firsthand experience with how the bigs change littles, so these kids' lives. And we are definitely in need of money and support to do so. So thank you for having us. So our vision and mission is that all youth achieve their full potential and to create and support one-to-one mentoring relationships to ignite the power and promise of youth. So we put big, so adults in essence, with kids. We join them based on their likes, what they like to do, what they're interested in, to really join the two so that there's common ground, and it can really kind of help grow and build up the youth.
So we, as a national organization, we do fall under, we're an independent corporation for the state of Montana. So we are our own 501c3. There are 4 other Big Brothers Big Sisters around the state, but we're each independent. We do work together. But we also have to maintain a set of standards. There are 23 standards that we're going through right now, and it's about that thick, to make sure that we are doing everything we can to comply with our national organization, to make sure that we're doing everything to keep kids safe. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is help these kids gain higher aspirations, greater confidence in themselves, and a lot of times what the parents want for their kids is that they can have better relationships. A lot of our kids are coming from single-parent homes. I met with a child on Friday. He lives with his aunt. She's a single parent of 1 child and her nephew. Don't know the circumstances, didn't need to know the circumstances, just that he is living with her and he needed a mentor to help build better relationships, and he's doing it. We also want to help them avoid risky behaviors, and we'll get into that in just a few minutes. And we also look at educational success. A lot of times this is a parent getting frustrated, I can't teach my kid the new math, and maybe there's somebody who really loves math that we can pair them up with. So like Lauren said, we really do very in-depth interviews and discussions with the parents, the child, and the volunteers. Those are separate, so that we can make sure that, like a puzzle, we're putting the pieces together exactly the way that they should be. Doesn't always work, but we try our best to do that. So I'm going to just turn it on. So we have three basic programs that we run out of our office here in Billings. And I will tell y'all, we have 3 full-time staff, and we have 1 volunteer that works with us in the office year-round. That is a partnership between the Jesuit Vista Northwest AmeriCorps program. So we fund a staff person to come in and run our school-based program. So we technically have 3 full-time staff. That would be myself, a development coordinator, and a program staff. And right now we're minus 1 of those, so we're actually only 2 people. So if you know anyone looking for a job, we have a position open running our 3 programs. So we have our community program. That's the core foundation program of Big Brothers Big Sisters. Children typically 7 to 15 spend about 4 hours a month with someone like Lauren. Then we have our school-based program. This is our largest program in Yellowstone County. We have high school juniors and seniors in the Laurel School District. So we have 29 high school juniors and seniors, and they're each paired with 2 littles. So we have 58 kids in that program. We have 1 person staffing that program. It's an interesting thing to watch her juggle this all day long. And they meet with them twice a week. So they meet with each little twice a week, and then our staff person goes in and they conduct a class every Wednesday for our bigs to teach them things like anger management, how to deal with children who are in the foster care system. So we're trying to teach the bigs at the same time we're teaching the littles. So we're watching them develop skills too of how to mentor someone younger than them. And then our Lunch Buddies program, I think of this one as, if you think you might want to be a mentor but you're not really sure, this is a great way to start out. We pair adults, again, just like Lauren, anybody in the community who can pass a background check. They're matched with a child either at Highlands or Lockwood. And you go once a week and have lunch with them. And it's just a fun thing to give that child some consistency in their life, which a lot of our children are missing. They come from these homes that are broken, or they're in the foster care system, and their big can be their one consistent person throughout their life, hopefully. So the big thing that we are really starting to look at with Big Brothers Big Sisters is that we can be a prevention program rather than an intervention. We want to try to help these kids before they start getting into these situations. I'm not going to read this to you because if you are interested in these stats, we can get them for you. But basically, this was a 2014 study, the Montana Prevention Needs Assessment Survey. And these are stats from 8th, 10th, and 12th grade. So this is the state data, and I tried to highlight the county data. So our kids are in Yellowstone County really are taking risks at young ages. And I think the one that stood out to me the most was not the ones up here ever drank alcohol in high school, probably, was that 2% of our 8th graders were using cocaine. I mean, I don't even know if I knew what cocaine was in 8th grade. Probably even into my college years, I didn't know what it was. And these numbers are probably even higher now. Now that we're, 5 years out, I would think probably inhalants, especially vape, those types of things. So we want to try to get with these kids even earlier than 8th grade, because this is when this behavior starts. So we're trying to get them at younger ages if we can.
No, you.
Okay.
You're doing great.
I'm trying to get Lauren to jump in. So this is a national survey that was done in partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters America. So our national organization did a study about 20 years ago, and it was they randomly picked littles from across the country, different size communities, different ethnic backgrounds, so that they could get some really good diverse data. But they were kids that had been in our program. And what we found was that 46% of our littles are less likely to begin using illegal drugs. I mean, that's big. And these stats are in the brochure that I passed out to you, so you have it. 27% of our littles were less likely to begin using alcohol. 52% were less likely to skip school. That's a good one. That's a really good one, because we know that we're making an impact in those kids to say, you need to go to school. 37% were less likely to skip a class, and 33% were less likely to hit someone. And we do see that. We had a little in Laurel that wanted to hit his big. And we were like, you can't do that. It's just not nice. And we have ground rules for the kids, and one of them is you need to use your manners when your big visits you. And if you can't, we might need to decide if this is the right fit for you. So, there you go.
So, and just to reiterate what Amy said, we have 3 full-time staff serving 102 matches. The organization has been around 45 years this year, so it's a great organization, and we need help from the community, obviously. So there's 37 community matches, 6 lunch buddies, and then 59 school-based matches. They receive subsidized lunches, 63% of them. Race is varied. We're definitely trying to get into more minority groups, but for now we have 60% white, 10% American Indian, 11% Hispanic, 2% Black, 17% other. And gender, 55% female and 45% male. We're definitely in need for more male, especially bigs. We have a lot of kids still on the waiting list, so to get males to volunteer is a little bit harder than females, so again, we're definitely in need of that. And we have 16 males and 10 females on the list.
Yep. And then this is, you also have this, but it doesn't look like this. The little cards that are like teal colored on the back, if you flip it over, it's actually a breakdown of what the average cost to fund a new match in their first year. So what we are asking through this grant is to help us So $12,500 would help us to serve 10 new matches over the next year. And what we typically see is about 20. So that 102 is a pretty consistent number, but of course we have some that exit the program because maybe age or they move, and then we have more come in. So it's about an average of 20 over the course of a year. And we want to try to help make sure that we can fund at least 10 of those. And the card that you have breaks down, it's all the exact same information, but what we do is we spend our funds making introductions, and that is a process. I didn't really realize that until I started getting into the program manager job last week. But just the process of introducing the big, the little, and the parent, it takes time, and it takes a very special person to be able to do that, so we want to make sure we have that right person in place. We also have to do the volunteer recruitment, promotional materials. The biggest part, one of the biggest expenses that we have is background checks. Because every person that comes to volunteer with our organization, no matter if it's a board member, staff of course, our community bigs and our lunch buddies, we do background checks on them. With a high school student, it's a little bit different. We do driving checks and things like that, although they can't drive our kids around. But we do make sure that it's a multi-layered check, so we do federal, state, and driving record checks, and if there's anything on there that we think would disqualify them, we can't have them volunteering, so we just want to make sure we're keeping our kids safe. We do spend money on child enrollment, and that's of course doing the interviews with the kids, and we do surveys to make sure that we're hitting benchmarks that the parents want to see the kids accomplish over the course of their match life. It's called a Youth Outcome Development Plan, and it is a very intensive plan that we do with the kids to make sure that we're helping them. Of course, some operational expenses. We have a system called MatchForce. If any of you are familiar with Salesforce, it's a product that Salesforce jumped in and helped build for Big Brothers Big Sisters America to help us track our data. We are mandatory reporters, and we're basically case managers. So when I met with this match on Friday for their annual review, and afterwards I sat and I typed in case notes for the entire meeting that we had. Because if anything ever happened, our records could be subpoenaed. So we have to make sure we have systems in place to make sure that happens. Also the professional match support. So what that means is we hire a professional person who has a bachelor's degree in some type of human services background to make sure that they're in there. Basically, we're hiring a social worker to come in and help with our matching process. They need to have a very special set of skills, and we want to make sure that we can get the right person in there. So I have to have a bachelor's degree as an executive director, and so does our program manager. But what we did was we hired across the board. Everybody in our office has a minimum of a bachelor's degree, one working on her master's degree. So we want to make sure we have the right people in the office to help us with these programs. So that's it. What questions do y'all have for Lauren or myself? Yes.
What is your ongoing support base?
Okay.
Besides
Grant
going out in
funding?
a community like this?
So I will say all of our services are non-sellable. We do not bill our volunteers. We're not able to bill